Now it's time to do a little something for all you lighting nerds out there. Okay, so PI uses a technique called multipass lighting. And basically all that means is that instead of rendering out everything at once, you break it down into all the different elements and put those together in a compositing package, like After Effects or Nuke or Fusion. Most of the shots in PI have about 30 of these passes, but a few of the really complex ones have closer to 60. So here's one of the simpler shots that we're going to break down and take a look at all the different passes that go into it. The first pass is just a basic shadow pass. All it is a really bright area light casting shadows, and then I've also used a flat white material on everything. And this is going to act as a mat so that whatever areas are white will be in direct sunlight, while the dark areas are going to be the shaded areas. So the next pass is our key light or sunlight pass. This is just one bright light with a couple of dimmer lights around it to help keep things from going completely black. And then the shaded area is actually two different passes. The first is an ambient pass, which I've made with a bunch of infinite lights pointed equally in all directions. I've heard some people call this a haystack before. Also, it's important to remember to turn off the specular on these lights, otherwise your ambient pass is going to look like a bunch of Christmas tree lights are all over the place. Now, the other big part of the shaded area is that not all surfaces receive the same amount of light. So we also render an occlusion pass, and when you multiply it on top of the ambient pass, you get what looks kind of like a really dark and overcast day. So now we take those two combined passes and the shadow pass from earlier, and we're going to use that shadow pass as a mat, kind of like a cookie cutter, that's going to get rid of all the areas that are supposed to be hit by direct sunlight. Then, when you lay that on top of the key pass, and then you color correct everything, then you're about 90% of the way there. So now we can use that same rough setup to do the rest of the objects in the scene. We've got the exact same 4 passes for the bench, the key, ambient, occlusion, and then the shadow. The pigeon, same way, and also Walter's hand, which is holding the bagel in the foreground. I've also done the glass as a separate element because you don't want to have all of that occlusion and shadow stuff happening on top of things that are transparent. And then we've also rendered a depth pass, which you can use to add some depth of field, but we're going to talk more about that in an upcoming podcast. If you've got any questions, be sure to drop by the blog or send me an email. Also, if you have any suggestions for upcoming episodes, I've got 3 or 4 more planned on lighting, and then after that, I'm open to new ideas. So be sure to tell your friends, and I'll see you next week.